Hello, everyone. Prakash Amritraj here. Another UTR All Access series powered by Oracle coming up. And it's been very exciting so far. We've, of course, had Sam Querrey, Allison Risk, Nick Bollettieri, Tennis Sangren, Dr. Jim Lohr, Gordon Euling, Vasek Pospisil, Yvonne Lendl, and we've also had Jez Green so far. And just a reminder, in case you've missed it, you can always watch all of these episodes on demand at myutr.com. You can see everyone filing in now. Hi, Lonnie. Jakub, hello. I love how global we are. From all over the world, we're seeing people come in, enjoying what UTR has been bringing. Greg Murphy, hello. Keep active with the chats, guys. It's been really, really great. We love seeing you guys interact with us and all of the questions. We're trying to get to as many of them as we can at the end of it with all of our guests on the show. Apologies if we can't get to all of them. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, my name is Prakash Amritraj. I grew up playing my junior tennis in Los Angeles, ended up playing for USC after that. Our team was fortunate enough to win a national title my freshman year, then played on the ATP Tour for about 10 years, and I'm one of the faces for Tennis Channel now, so still able to talk about the sport that I love, my first love, as I always call it. You can catch me on TC Live. We're still bringing new content on Tennis Channel weekly, so keep an eye out for me there on May 11th and 18th, both of those weeks. Is your dad Amritraj? Already coming in with some questions. Well, since I saw that, I'll just add that one. There are a few brothers, but my father is Vijay Amritraj, in case that helps your question there. Suhani from Spain. Hi, Suhani. We're getting very close now to pulling in our very special guest, who I'm fortunate enough to know quite well and feel very privileged to know him that well. But before we tee up our guest today, and while the rest of you folks are settling in, let's just take a look at a short video on how UTR powered by Oracle is really changing the game of tennis.
There is a movement building in tennis, a groundswell that is changing the game, redefining who we play, how we play, and bringing fun to the sport in a whole new way. It isn't about who you are, where you come from, or your age or gender. It's about passion and love of the sport, about the will to improve, about community, competition, fun, and friendship. In local communities all around the world, this movement is creating new opportunities that make tennis, well, universal, equal, open, inviting. This is Universal Tennis. Want to join us?
Making an impact all over the world. Now, well, an official welcome now to the UTR Powered by Oracle All Access Series, a free opportunity to connect and learn with some of the biggest names in tennis. Now, just a reminder to all the coaches out there, stay tuned, because UTR has a new virtual events initiative coming soon for any coach, anywhere, to be able to create and host your own virtual events. These can be free or paid, with all the proceeds going to the coaches. So go to myutr.com and sign up for free. UTR will get you set up right away. And just a reminder, coming up, we are going Tuesdays and Thursdays. Our next All Access series coming up is Bethany Maddox-Sands, who has been quite a personality for a number of years now on the tour. She'll be on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you tune in for that. Well, I'd like to introduce our first guest now. There's a lot I could say. He's had a storied career, and even before that, he's arguably maybe the greatest collegiate tennis player of all time, perhaps athlete. I've gotten to know him very well. He's a tremendous gentleman, and just a really great sportsman out there. And I know he's been an inspiration to me. I'm sure everyone out there today, regardless of your age or level of play, can learn a ton from the guy. So without wasting any more time, can I please, with great pleasure, bring on Mr. Steve Johnson.
Hey everybody, how are you?
Stevie, how we doing?
Just hanging in there and just trying my best to kind of keep it on my shoulders and get.
Stevie, it's a tough time right now that we're all going through. How are you managing to keep your head up? Because you were playing some great ball leading up to this.
Yeah, I've just been kind of spending some time playing. We're just hanging out with family, spending time here in California. I played a lot at the beginning of the year, so kind of when all this happened, it was nice to kind of get a couple-week break to kind of get back and just kind of put the rackets down. But at this point, I think we're all itching to get back to play the sport that we love so much. And for me, I'm just ready to get back and really want to get back to the game that I love.
You look good. Have you been managing to stay fit? Have you been hitting many balls? What have you been up to physical wise?
I haven't hit any tennis balls since the end of the Indian Wells Challenger, the Oracle Challenger back in I guess March. At this point, it's being in California, everything's a bit more I think strict maybe than some of the other places. So we've been kind of just doing our best to kind of shelter in place and do our part to kind of get through this thing. But trying my best to just stay in whatever shape I can. It was nice the first, like I said, the first couple of weeks you get to relax and don't have to worry about the diet and eating so much. But now it's back to, I try and work out as much as I can with the limited resources that I have. And, it just kind of keeps my mind fresh and it gives me a chance to stay disciplined.
Stevie, there's a few different things that I want to really go into about your journey, because I think, a lot of the viewers can learn a lot from it. But I'd just like to take a look at your 2019 here. Your UTR has consistently moved up. You had some great wins last year. You mixed in a lot of different events. When your ranking dropped a little bit, you weren't shy to go and play some challengers, which you hadn't in quite some time, and you won a ton of matches. And as we can see here, you mixed up some really great wins. I won't forget that 5-set win that you had over Demonauer at Wimbledon, pretty special, and continued all the way into New York of this year with a UTR well over 15. So really kind of building up your level of play. How did you see the last sort of 12, 18 months for you?
Tennis is a crazy sport full of lots of ups and downs and momentum swings, and you just kind of have to find a way to really power through it. Believe in yourself, believe in what you're doing is what's best for you. And that's what I try to do the most. I was having a bit of a tough year, for my standards. I didn't win many matches, kind of getting through, the first quarter of the year. And then, I felt like I kind of turned a corner on the grass, had a couple good results on the grass. And then, you get to the US summer and you really want to kind of hit the ground running. And, unfortunately I didn't at the beginning. Got back to Aptos, where I had won a challenger, I think back in 2012, and came back, won that, won 5 matches in a row. And, winning solves a lot of problems on the confidence side of things. Anytime you can be the last person standing at any event, that's incredible. So, that really turned it around for me. And then I had a great week up in Winston-Salem. And then, I kind of shut it down at the earlier in the year just to kind of regroup and reset for 2020. And worked out well so far for the beginning of this year.
I think you said something really interesting there. Winning solves a lot of problems. And I think that's something that UTR is so brilliant at. We see where your UTR is now. Your current ranking, I believe, is around 63. And, the way you're playing, that doesn't really seem like a fair representation. It seems that you're playing well above that ranking.
Yeah, it's one of those things where my ranking, I think at the end of last year when I finished, was maybe mid 80s or so. So I felt like at the start of this year I played a few challengers, had a couple wins,
Right.
Played well in some of the ATP events, and I felt like I was definitely on the right trajectory, kind of getting my momentum back to where I wanted to get to top 50, top 40, and kind of top 30 to where I feel like I belong and competing in those events. So for me, it wasn't so much as I thought of it as a step backwards playing some of these smaller events. It was more I want to play as many matches. I want to be match tough. I want to get back to those winning ways and get into those situations. And for me, it was a great start to the year, and really bummed, with what's happened now. But hopefully, we can, really get to some tennis. Hopefully, later in the year.
That's a brilliant attitude, Stevie, and I think that's why you've done so much winning over the course of your career. Let's take it back to the beginning. Let's tell everyone where you're from.
Yeah, I grew up in Orange, California, so just south of Los Angeles. Didn't go far from home. Played all my junior tennis in Southern California.
Yep.
Never played. I played like one or two ITF events a year in Carson, which is in LA, and other than that, didn't play any of the Grand Slams. Didn't do any of that. Played all the USTA and Southern California stuff, and then got to the point where I always was going to go to college, and chose my path at USC. I followed in the Prakash Amritraj footsteps there, and and just had a blast. And really, I think from there I really felt the belief and felt the drive and passion for the game to kind of make that next step. And for me, it was my time at USC, and believing that I could make a transition on the pro tour. And, fortunate enough, this was year 9 for me on the tour. So crazy to think about it, but, it's, time flies when you're having fun, I guess.
So you didn't really feel that you were wanting to go pro or ready to go pro really until you went through that period of college tennis.
Yeah, no, not at all. At 18 years old, you think as an 18-year-old, you have a lot of things figured out in life and whatnot. But, college was incredible for me. It gave me a chance to mature. It gave me a chance to really, put into perspective what I wanted to do with my life. Tennis was a passion of mine. And then it became at the forefront of, something that was a realistic possibility. And I really put in an incredible work ethic, dedication, and discipline I learned in college. And, I've really translated that. And I think that's the biggest jump in my game that I've made from, juniors to college, and then college to now where I am today.
That period, Stevie, in college, when you came in, what did you play your freshman year?
I believe I played a little bit at 4 and mostly 3 my first year. And again, coming into it, we had 5 at my time. We had 5 recruits come into USC at the same time, 5 freshmen. Yep. To a team that was good, but not, yep. They hadn't won it for a few years since you were there. So, for me, I just wanted to play. I wanted to be top 6, and I wanted to do my best to really, crack the lineup and help the team. And, once you got into the year, you kind of get in the flow of things. I started at 4, played 3. And then, at NCAAs, I played 2. And then from there, we just kind of, got on a roll, and, everybody kind of did what they needed to do for the team. And that was the coolest thing to be a part of.
We all look at milestones in our career. And, I'm so curious about that period, because as you mentioned, you started at, 3, 4, worked your way up, and obviously you kept improving. You were playing under Peter Smith there, who, I can't say enough about, just such a fantastic coach and a tremendous guy. And from there, you all of a sudden just started going undefeated. You had 2 years, which I don't think we'll ever see again on the NCAA tennis circuit, and it's going to be remembered forever. Was there any kind of moments or experiences that sort of pushed you to that level, mentally or in your game?
I think it really hit me my sophomore year. I was in the fall. So we had won NCAAs. We started the fall. We have our biggest tournament, National Indoors. Yep. I win it. I win it as a sophomore. I make the tournament. I don't think anybody really thought I was, going to win. I don't think at that time I was even, I was 15, 20 in the nation maybe. So I win that tournament and I get to 1 in the country. And, at that point, I feel like I'm 19, just about to turn 20. I feel like, all right, like this is a possibility for me to really make, tennis, being a tennis professional, a realistic possibility. And, from then, I just worked, my butt off, and I worked as much as I could to get better and better. And, then came my junior year, and, the ball just kind of kept rolling in the right direction. And, once that snowball started going down the hill, it was going to be hard to stop. But I look back and just kind of laugh now. But at the time, you don't even think about it. I just wanted to, kind of get better as a tennis player. And, just, I wanted to get my 1 point every day when whoever we were playing, just so the team could get a win.
Did that team aspect sort of help develop your game?
Oh, yeah, big time. I love being part of a team. I think, unfortunately, tennis is such an individual sport that we don't get too many opportunities to be a part of a team. And, I thrived in that environment, and I feel like I still do to this day. So,
Yeah.
Whenever you can kind of look up and down the row and you see six of your good buddies battling out there for the same reason, for the same goals, and, all the work that you put in together, it's a great feeling. And, something that I wish I could give back. And I tell the boys out of USC all the time, I said, I'd give a lot back to, come play UCLA one more time, or come play a national final one more time, just to have that feeling and, just to have that excitement. Because, you just don't get that kind of atmosphere on the ATP tour as much as you did in college.
Stevie, before we move on to where you've been so successful on the ATP tour, I just want to ask a few questions about your junior career, because there are so many players out there who aspire to get into a USC or the college of their choice. And tennis was obviously a big part of that for you. When you were growing up in juniors, when did you sort of start taking the game more seriously? When did the practice go from just sort of a hobby to, you know what, I'm really going to start working at this?
It's, for me, I was, if I look back, and I'm going off of memory here, so I could be way off, but, in the 12s and 14s, if we're looking way back, I was, one in the country, one in the section. I was kind of at the top, and then, I'd get to 15 and 16 and 17. And that's when, maybe some of the talent kind of, doesn't get you as far as it once did. And, as people, we start to grow and mature, and our bodies kind of take shape and take form. And, I wasn't that good in the 16s, and I wasn't that good in the 18s. And, I'm saying relatively, I was probably top 10 in the section, top 30 in the country. I think I made round of 16 at Kalamazoo my last year as my best result. So, I didn't, kind of make that transition till college. So I saw the older guys on the team and their work ethic and what they did on a daily basis. And, I didn't do any of that really in the 16s and 18s. And I really wish I would have, kind of had that base and some of that discipline going forward. But, thankfully I've really, I got that very quickly in college, and, turned a corner there.
Everyone, it's all about right now. They all want to rush. I want everything all my goals right now. How were you with the aspect of time? Were you able to just sort of let things come to you gradually as they should?
As I got older, I did. As a kid, everything is so important. The 12s, the 14s, the 16s, the 18s. And I'm around a lot of the kids now. When I do my training out at the USTA facility in Carson. There's a lot of young kids there, and, I kind of see them, living and dying with these results, and one match here and one match there. And, I try and tell the kids, this is the advice that I wish, I would have, I'm sure I've gotten it, but I wish I would have maybe taken a bit more in the juniors was, you have to be practical about your wins and losses. It's not about right now, I can't tell you any of my wins and losses in the juniors really at this point, so, in the grand scheme of things, it's so important at the time, but, when you get older, you just want to make sure that your game is progressing, your mentality, your maturity, your physicality, everything is going in the right direction. Because because whatever your end point is in tennis, or whatever your goal is, that's what you got to look for. You can't look for, everything at the moment. You got to work for, if you want to make a college team, if you want to try and play professional, if you want to just, get to a college and, become a lawyer or doctor, any of these things, you got to have, your goal set in mind, and everybody's different.
Maybe one of the most overlooked pieces of advice we see as kids. Stevie, tell me about your parents. Were they the ones who put the racket into your hand? Did they have you play a lot of different sports?
Yeah, my parents put me into tennis. I was very fortunate. My parents met playing tennis back in high school. So,
Oh, cool.
they're a tennis kind of a long time ago. And my dad was a tennis coach ever since then. He loved the game and loved the passion. And my mom still plays tennis now. She's a math professor at a university, so she I had, the best of both worlds. My parents never forced me to play tennis, but it was one of those things where I just grew up loving it. I always wanted to spend time around my dad. So, as a kid, 2, 3, 4, whatever, I was always with my dad at the courts. During the summer camps, as long as you could possibly be out there playing tennis. And, I really, fell and had that passion for the game quite early. And, I played just about every sport growing up and competitively. And I will say I didn't focus on tennis, as my maybe number one sport or my main focus till I was about 16 or 17.
Oh, wow.
I played competitive baseball and competitive basketball and stuff until then. And so for me, I was, I think, lucky in that respect, because I got to kind of focus on a lot of different sports, learn a lot of different skill sets and talents, and be on a team atmosphere and kind of figure everything out in that regard. But, tennis has always been number one for me. And, I love, still love it to this day.
For everyone out there, I think we should all really take note of this. Stevie's one of the best athletes out there, and the fact that he had a chance to develop all these different tools, playing different sports, I think it shows in his game as opposed to pushing him into a sport too early. That's wonderful, Stevie. Did it help that your parents had kind of they had played the sport, so they understood a little bit, not to jump on you maybe after you lose 7-6 in the third and stuff like that?
Yeah, of course. It's the only time my parents ever, would have gotten mad at me. I mean, wins and losses are never anything anybody should ever get upset about. It's,
Right.
it was my attitude. I would say,
Sure.
I was a kid who had a temper, I'm sure, out there. And, it's one of those things where you got to do things the right way. And I think tennis is an incredible sport for that. It's you and your opponent. It really teaches you, honesty, how to trust your opponent, how to, be a competitor, but do it in the right way. And I think that's a huge part of our sport that needs to be kind of learned as a kid. And, it just grows and grows. But yeah, my parents, I can't thank them enough. And, there's no chance I'm here today, or any of the success that I've had without them.
Love hearing that. All right, so we've learned some of the lessons you've learned from these couple phases, the juniors and college in your career. Let's go to the pros. I mean, this is the top level. This is the highest level it gets in our sport that you've gotten to. What were the big lessons you were learning when you first got on the tour?
Ooh, I think the biggest lesson I learned was you lose a lot. It's and it's not a bad thing.
Right.
It's one of those things. Look, there's one person that wins every week, and that person is usually Roger, Rafa, or Novak. So you gotta take it. You gotta take the wins and the losses kind of and be practical about it. And it took me a long time. It took me a year and a half, 2 years to really be okay with, losses, and how they affected my psyche and my confidence. For a year, every time I lost, I just felt like I wasn't good enough, or, maybe I'm not cut out for this, or, all those questions kind of float around. And, and then I finally got to the point where I just decided, hey, it's, at the time, Craig Boynton was my coach, who was my coach for about, 5 or 6 years. We just wanted to, either we won, the match, or we were practical about it. What did we take from the loss? So next week,
Right.
we're going to, take the lessons we learned, and we're going to keep moving forward. And we're not going to lose the same way twice. We're not going to, we're going to try everything in our power to kind of take what happened the previous week and move on. And, some weeks that was easier than others, but, you got to be okay with the losses. But that was the hardest part for me coming out of college.
Strategy-wise, when you first came out of college, it's tough because you come out of a place where you're just by far and away the best among anyone you play. And now, you know what? Everyone's good, and you will take those bumps, as you said. Was it for you more about working on weaknesses which weren't maybe exposed in college, or was it just about, I'm going to really pummel my strengths home?
I think it's both. You never want to go away from what you do best. If you're
Right.
John Isner, you're not going to spend, the next 2 years only hitting returns. You have the best serve of all time in tennis. Like, we're going to work on it and make it better. For me, I'm going to make my serve and my forehand as best as I possibly can. And I'm going to, make the weaknesses, not as weak. I'm going to shore those
Right.
holes up, and I want to make that, as strong as possible, and utilize that to my benefit. So for me, you never want to focus too much time on one side of your game that you feel like is weak, because your strengths are always going to be your strengths.
Right.
And I think that's something that I think I learned maybe early in my career, which was great. It's something that this is who I am, this is how I'm going to play, and this is how we're going to do it.
I always feel there's a huge jump between, getting into, let's say, from the lower ranks into the top 200. Then there's a jump into the top 100, top 50, top 20. Each jump is quite big. What do you feel are the biggest gaps that you need to overcome when you hit those hurdles?
It's consistency. I feel like, if you look at a guy who's 200, they're a darn good tennis player. They
Yep.
have all the skills, they have it, but they just don't do it either in the big moments as much as the guys 100 who are ranked 100, or they don't do it as consistent week in and week out. And then
Right.
you look at the guys from 100 to 50, and I think 50 to 30, and then 30 to 20. It kind of gets to that point of these guys just do it at a higher level for a longer period of time, week in and week out, and they have the either ability to kind of take away their nerves and whatnot in the biggest moments and kind of focus on that. And I think, at that point, when you start getting into the top 15, top 10, top 5, then it becomes a skill set. And again, at that point, everything is buttoned up just even a little bit more and more. And, but, I think it's just tough for anybody to break into the top 3 or 4 at this point right now with some of those guys at the top. But it's something that we're all working for.
Thank you for that, Stevie. Just to hit it home again, everyone, young, worried about hitting great shots, consistency, doing the X's and O's. That's beautiful. Tell me about your preparation now as a seasoned veteran. You've been on the tour for 9 years. What is your preparation for a match like now versus in college?
I think in college it was, we were with the team. You're kind of fired up. We had a different, I guess, format maybe. We started off, we played doubles, and then we went out and played our singles. So we were kind of fired up. The team atmosphere was a bit more, raucous, and we were excited, and we wanted to kind of get the blood going in the doubles and, get excited and get pumped up. And then kind of when we went out to our singles, I just wanted to take, we had about 5 minutes in between the doubles and the singles. So you were already hot, you were already feeling good.
Sure.
You want to go out there and kind of play. And, now I'm a pretty laid back guy from California. So, for me, I'm kind of hanging in the locker room, kind of getting my body ready with my physio and whatnot. And I'm laughing and goofing around. And, with about 5 minutes to go before the match, then it's like, I'll kind of go out by myself and kind of focus in and go over the last minute game plans with the coaches and whatnot. But for me, I like to take it easy, have some laugh, goof around in the locker room. Everybody's different. It's one of those things where, some of the guys are laser focused for an hour before, and some guys are just, checking their phone on the walk out to the court, and whatever works for them.
Stevie, you've given us some great technical information, which I really hope everyone's been out there with a pen and paper and taking some notes here. But, we do have a lot of people here who are just tremendous fans of you, just want to hear about some of your best matches. So I'm going to bring up one that didn't go as well as you'd like, but I just want to hear what that experience was like. But if there are any other matches
Can't wait to hear this one.
that really stand out in your career, please share those special moments with us. But for me, and I remember Peter Smith flew out specifically for this match. I believe it was at Wimbledon 15 or 16, one of the years where 16 was it?
Yep.
I played some great tennis. You're playing on the biggest court in the history of the game against the biggest guy, Roger Federer, round of 16, Wimbledon. Tell us what that was like. Center court. Every kid wants to play on that court.
Yeah. I will say probably one of the craziest 3 weeks of maybe my tennis career.
Wow.
If I can even, a little bit of backstory going into that match. 3 weeks prior, we're playing in Hertogenbosch, one of the qualifying tournament, or one of the pre-warm-up tournaments for Wimbledon. And I'm playing, and I've had like 4 or 5 wins this year. I've played horrible, just an awful start to the year. I'm just getting my bell rung week in and week out. I call my parents, call my agent. I'm like, hey, like, I'm done. Like, let's play Wimbledon. Like, let's play Wimbledon. And then I'm going to take 6 months off. Like, I need a break, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, like, let's revisit this in a week. You're, a bit emotional, yada, yada, yada. And, rightly so, rightly so. And so I get to Queens, have my, the next week, have my first top 10 win. Then the following week, I win Nottingham, my first ATP event. So at this point, like, 2 weeks ago was so far in the past that I don't even remember it. That's how quickly tennis turns. And, all of a sudden now I'm in the 4th round of Wimbledon. I'm playing Federer. It's July 4th. My dad's in the stands. My Peter Smith's in the stand. My coaches, at that time, girlfriend, not quite fiance yet, but now wife, her sister and her sister's significant other were in the box. And I had my 2 good buddies in college. So it was one of those things where you're walking out to center court at Wimbledon and, you walk through this hallway and all you're doing is walking in front of Roger because obviously, you're not going out there after Roger. And, you're just walking by and it's like, Roger's trophy, another one trophy, Roger's, cardigan, his pants, whatever. You're like, I'm just walking through a hall of, fame for Federer. And this is like a normal Monday for him. And I'm walking out there for the first time. And I will say it took my breath away for the first few minutes going out there to play Roger. It was a cool experience, not one that went my way, but, I took that, it's one of those losses where you didn't hang my head too long in the locker room after, it was one of those ones where it was a great learning experience, fun, incredible life moments that I'll get to, have forever.
You get the little goosebumps listening to that. That's a really interesting lead up to it too. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
that.
Tennis is a crazy sport.
Truly, can you look back on your career and over the lessons you've learned? It's funny what people pick out, but can you point back to an incident where you were a match rather where you were, what, I was most proud of this one? And it's funny, a lot of players pick not necessarily the biggest matches, but say one they really turn their head around or something like that. Is there one that stands out for you?
I think there's a couple that stick out to me. One was the French Open. I forget what year. I think it was either 13 or 14. I think it was my first. It must have been 2014 if I'm not mistaken. I'm playing a young French kid who's on his he's 18 or 19, kind of their next kind of hope at what they think. He's got an incredible fan base behind him. I'm like 15 minutes late to the match because nobody gets to me in the locker room, and I'm kind of waiting, and I get out there and I'm getting booed by a full stadium at French Open, and I was just kind of getting my head beat in, unfortunately, down 2 sets and down a break or 2, 4-1 in the 3rd, and I end up winning that set, winning the 4th, and we have to stop due to the darkness. I think I was up 2-0 or something in the 5th set. We stopped due to darkness, had to come back the next day, but it was one of the coolest atmospheres I've ever played in, and it was something that gave me the belief that I can come back. I can kind of overcome anything if I just put my head down and kind of stick put my heart on the line and just give it my all. And for me, I'll never forget that moment, kind of that feeling of overcoming the crowd and my opponent to a pretty crazy victory that I still can remember pretty clearly.
Another beautiful lesson. Kids, this guy's beaten some of the biggest names in the sport, but a match which shows his true grit is something that sticks out in his head. So that's brilliant. I hope everyone out there focuses on that. Steve, before I get to the Q&As from everyone else, I just want to ask you if you could go back and sort of give the younger Steve Johnson some advice, hoping that he'd take it. We don't know if he'd take it, but hoping that he'd take it. What would you give him?
For me, if I could go back to myself at 14 or 15, I would say to kind of learn the discipline needed off the court to kind of progress my game. Not that you need to be in the gym going crazy every single day as a 14-year-old, 15-year-old with your body still kind of growing and kind of working to that, but just learning that work ethic, learning that enjoyment in the process. There's a lot that goes on to a tennis that nobody sees, away from the courts. And then if I could, tell myself, some information in college, I would say to just, embrace the journey, embrace, the roller coaster-esque type of career that tennis brings, with the ups and downs, and, just enjoy it, enjoy the process, enjoy the people, enjoy everything along the way, because you never know when the sport can be kind of taken from you. So you really want to make the most of it as long as you possibly can. And, I've done that the last so many years, and I've really enjoyed my time, doing that, much more than I did at the beginning of my career, kind of focusing on, the wins and losses.
Gratitude, focus, and living in the moment. I love it, Stevie. I certainly think of you when you think of those traits. All right, now we're going to take the questions out of my hands, and we're going to go to some of the pre-sent in ones before I'll turn it over to you with the live section. So we have a question from Joaquin. He is sending in, how did you get past your defeats? What did you tell yourself to be able to move on?
There's a lot of different losses. There's, not every loss is the same. Some days, your opponent just is too good. Some days, it's just not in the cards for you to win. Maybe you just feel like you have two left feet out there, and you're, for me, my strengths aren't working. My serve and my forehand, I'm trying my best. And, there's some days where you have match point and you kind of let it slip away. And, not every loss is created equal, but how you deal with it, for me, is the most important. You got to focus on what you did well, how you can, grow from these, wins and losses, and just kind of take that into each and every, match or tournament or week, following a tough loss. I think that's how resilience is created, and then that's a big part of the sport.
Positivity, positivity, positivity. Okay, I'm going to combine a couple questions here. This is from David and Shannon. So David's question is, how do you hit a good backhand slice? But Shannon took it one step further, and Shannon is asking, Steve, how did you perfect your backhand slice?
A lot of practice, a lot of reps. There was a lot of time there where I would say, I didn't really want to hit a backhand. I don't think, the confidence was there. But I feel like, it's something that, it's a skill set. You got to go out and you got to work on it. You got to work on the fundamentals, the footwork to how you commit to the shot, how you go after it. And, for me, it's something that I've really embraced and grown. And I use that as a huge part of my game. I'm sure as anybody who watched it would know that, to kind of, change the pace, to kind of get my opponents uncomfortable and kind of find ways to get to my forehand. So for me, I'm glad I feel like I've, as an athlete, I wouldn't say it's perfect, because I always want to keep getting better and better, but I'm definitely striving for perfection on that side of the ball towards the end of my career.
Stevie, just to go into a little more detail, is there something you can give our audience out there as far as, maybe an important aspect to focus on, whether it's the shoulder turn or whatever you think?
Yeah, I think for me, the most important thing is getting a good shoulder turn. You don't want to you want to keep a straight on the backhand slice. You want to keep the plane as straight as possible on the swing. You don't want to have, as you would, a normal backhand, you kind of have that loop from low to high to get the topspin. For me, on the slice, you want to stay, kind of right, maybe below my left shoulder, since I'm righty, and I want to go through the ball as flat as possible to kind of get that, that penetrating hard slice kind of through the court. So for me, it's a great shoulder turn, great footwork, and then, committing to the shot and committing all the way through the ball.
Textbook is, if you ask me. Okay, Stevie, we are getting a question from Chitrang. Chitrang, hopefully I pronounce your name correctly. Stevie, how do you keep yourself composed in tight situations?
Great question. I think that's a huge part of tennis. There's a lot of big moments out there, and you see, some guys, deal with it better than others. And for me, I like to go back to the basics. I like to go to what I do best. If I want to go to my eighth strategy to who I'm playing that day, maybe it's a certain play or a certain, kind of a variation of shot that I want to hit. I like to kind of gather my thoughts, and when I step up to the line, I want to have a clear head of and a clear game plan of what I want to accomplish. And then obviously when the point goes, if there's, if you got to make some adjustments, you make it. But, walking up to line, in big moments, you want to just kind of be clear, steady everything, kind of get the heart rate down and just focus on everything that you can focus on, because what your opponent does is out of your control.
Stevie, I'm going to give you two more before I'm going to turn it over to you in the live questions. This is a very interesting question. Ronan is asking, do you believe homeschooling is necessary to reach the top 100 level today? And if so, what age should one start?
For me, I never did homeschool. I don't necessarily believe that homeschool is a necessity. Maybe it was a little bit of where I grew up. I was very fortunate growing up in Southern California. So the tennis level was incredible. I always had people very close to me, very, kind of in a close proximity to practice with and who were better than me. So I was able to have, my childhood and kind of beyond, with people who are incredible, athletes and tennis players. And, I get that aspect if you're, maybe from somewhere where it's not conducive to, drive 15, 20 minutes to play somebody. So, I think what everybody has their own path. And, for me, my path was, just regular school, regular high school, regular college. But I have a lot of friends who did the homeschool stuff who are, darn good tennis players and darn good people. So, you got to do what's best for you. And, I think, there's no right answer for that one.
All right, so the last question I'm going to take is from Renee. We don't have last names here. We just have your first name. So if this is Renee Zellweger, I was a huge fan in Jerry Maguire and in Judy, just to let you know. Anyway, question coming in from Renee. She is asking you, considering this webinar is titled Learn from Your Journey, Steve, what is the most important thing you've learned from your journey?
Resilience. Life and tennis have, will kick you down here and there, and throw you a curveball, and it's all about how I feel like you deal with that adversity and how you come out with it, hopefully stronger on the other side. And it's a hard part of life. It's a hard part of tennis. But you got to just focus on, trying to stay positive and focus on, what you can control. So for me, being a resilient, human and person out on the tennis court is incredibly important.
That's beautiful, my man. Yeah, don't forget to hydrate. Don't forget to hydrate. Listen, I'm gonna turn it over to you for a little bit now. So you got a live chat. Everyone, fire in some good questions, and I'll join you back in a sec.
All right. So so bear with me, everyone, if I just getting these questions right here. So this one is from Daniel Cristobal. Can you tell us about how to get to college tennis? Yeah, I mean, for me, it's, playing, being active. If you're not, from maybe a place that's has, the tournaments and whatnot, I think it's very important for you, especially this day and age with social media, is to reach out to coaches, reach out to universities that you really are interested in. Nobody's going to be, upset that you're, emailing a coach, that you're interested in going to the university and whatnot. So I think for that, it's going to be very important to, reach out if you're not somewhere that's very visible on the tennis scene, and, kind of go from that. This one is from Matt Gutz. You seem to have such a unique and close relationship with your father, who's also your coach. What was different about your father as a coach than most parents that are coaches, just in general? And, for me, my dad was my coach growing up. He was he was my coach until the end. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. He was always somebody that I could call day and night for any advice, for any type of, assurances, or if I was doubting myself or whatnot. So for me, it was, we always, when we were on the court, we focused on, the coaching side of things. And then when we left the courts, he was, my dad. We didn't, kind of mix that too often. So it was, I was very lucky. I see a lot of, parents, coaches, and whatnot that maybe don't go according to plan. So for me, I was very lucky, very fortunate, and we were always able to kind of split that role. Let's see here. How about this one from Alejandro Riveros? It says, Norm, let's see, before coronavirus, how was your daily schedule between physical training and court training leading to a tournament? So for me, let's say a normal week for me would be leading up to an event. I'm a morning person, so I like to get up early and kind of get my stuff out of the way as early as possible. So a normal day for me is I wake up around 6 a.m. and I'm in the gym from about 7 to 9 a.m. and doing some of that with my physical therapist down in Orange County and the people that I use as my training. And then I'm on the court from about 10 to 12 and focusing on that with my coaches right now with Peter Smith and Mark Lucero, and then grab some lunch, kind of hang out, and then I'm usually back in the gym from about 1:30 to 3, kind of getting some more work in the gym, focusing on any type of injuries or anything from that standpoint. So for me, I like to kind of get up early and get my day done earlier than some, and then if I have time, I like to go in and sneak out and hit a few golf balls after that to kind of end my day, and then get back up to work and go to work the next day. This one is from Lonnie Brotman. It's how do you think you play when you're playing top players? It's tough. When I've played all the top guys. They bring such incredible confidence. They bring such incredible just staying power. And these guys go out there, they're the ultimate professionals. They know exactly what they do and how they do it and what they do well. And, they just do, these things at a higher level than, at a longer period of time than some of the other guys. And it's incredible to see. And it's, it's fun it's a fun, game for me to try and solve, for the next time we all go out there and play. I want to, try and have a new strategy and a new game plan to go out and beat these top guys. Let's see here. From an anonymous attendee, which stroke do you think is your weapon in tennis? And for me, it's my serve and my forehand. Ever since I was a kid, I've loved anything to do with that side of the ball. So I love to go out there and try and hit as many forehands as possible. And for me, it's something that I'm going to try and do, and I'm going to try and do it as many times as possible. And this one's from Austin Price. Is what's my favorite Orange High School tennis memory? For all you guys, Orange High School is where I went to high school. Both of my parents went to high school back there, back in the day, and that's where my sister and I both went. So haven't gone far from there, and I just love being on the team, playing with my buddies, playing with the guys, and I was able to win CIF my junior and sophomore year individually. So it was a fun time. Had a blast. Just kind of honing my game and getting to be a part of a team. This one is from Greg Murphy. And how do you cope with the pressure? That's a great question. Pressure is always going to be on you, just because it's just you and your opponent out there. And I think that's a cool part of tennis, and sometimes maybe like a tough part of tennis. You want to sometimes have somebody else to lean on while you're out there, but when you're out there, I just try and focus on what I can focus on. I feel confident in my abilities to go out there and win every match, regardless who I'm playing. And so I always take the court with that mindset. And then, when it gets time to win, you got to focus on what you do best and just kind of execute the game plan. Don't think about, how you get to winning, how you get to the end of the match. You just need to execute the game plan and execute what you do best. Let's see. Sorry, guys, scrolling through these. This one's from Mary Sans. What do you mentally do to get ready for a match? And for me, like I said, I like to just kind of keep it easy. I like to, have have a laugh, goof around in the locker room with the guys and the coaches and kind of everybody. I don't want to kind of get focused in on the game plan, hours beforehand, because, I feel like that'll just kind of mentally wear me out if I'm thinking about it for that long. So I like to take it as easy as possible, have a laugh, goof around, and then about 5-10 minutes to go before the match, then, I'll, kind of, we'll sit out with the coaches. I'll, get the body 100% ready to go, and we'll have a game plan, and we'll go out there and we'll take care of business. And, at that point, I know I've put in all the work that's been done. So for me, I feel prepared, ready to go, and ready to go into battle. This one's from Ryan Rodell, and this is, who did you look up to during your junior career? And, for me, I looked up to Sam Querrey, being, somebody from Southern California who kind of did everything before me. So he was somebody that I definitely looked up to as a junior, because he was, somebody in Southern California that had, risen to, top 100 in the world at 18 years old. So very cool to see, and, lucky to call him a really close friend of mine today, and somebody that I get to spend a lot of time in practice with. So, he was one of the best in Southern California, and that was a great part about it. This one's from Maz, and it's, in what situations do you use your backhand slice? And, for me, I use it quite often. I like to use it to kind of change the pace, change the tempo, change the kind of the dimensions of where they're hitting, the ball every time. And I feel like I can kind of put my opponents in awkward positions when, maybe they don't like that too much. So for me, I use it quite a bit, and I like to use it to my advantage. I like to use it to kind of open up the game and the court to kind of hit my forehand and kind of get into more offensive positions. And this one is from Tal Pendo, and it's, what advice would you give an aspiring pro junior, what they should be doing or could be doing during the current lockdown to keep their game in shape while staying home? I think it's great. I think, it's something that, hopefully in the long run, people can kind of come out of this with, maybe a new skill, or, maybe how they feel, holding the racket, if they're trying to change a grip for a forehand or a backhand, or they can go out and practice, maybe footwork and whatnot. So, for me, I'm still doing a lot of that stuff, kind of, doing a lot of footwork stuff just to kind of keep, that kind of part of my body, the repetition in contact. So I've enjoyed doing that, and hopefully you guys can do that as well. This one is from Hari Raghavan, and this one is, how do you stay calm and execute when you lose your lead and your opponent comes back? That is that's a good question. That happens a lot, unfortunately, but that's part of tennis. It's not always going to be smooth sailing. There's always going to be times where things go your way and then they start to go, a different way. So for me, it's you just got to stay focused. I like to focus on that as, if I've lost my lead, that I got a lead, I was once ahead. How do I get back to that? What did I do to kind of, how do I execute my strategy as well, again, to get back into a lead? And, sometimes, your opponent just has a good 5 or 10 minutes, and you got to just kind of have to weather the storm. So for me, I like to focus on, how I got to a lead and get back to that. This one's from another anonymous attendee. It's for a competitive recreational player trying to improve. What do you recommend the ratio between hitting, practice drills versus playing in practice matches? I think all of those are incredibly important. I think the hitting and the practice and the drills are so extremely important if you're working on certain aspects of your game, whether it be, your forehand down the line, or your backhand cross court, or, working on your volleys. A lot of repetition can kind of sear into your game what it's going to be and how it's going to feel when you're out there playing matches. And then I feel like once you kind of have that feeling down doing the drills, then you kind of progress and you play points and you play practice matches to kind of get that same feeling of, how do you do this when it's not just getting fed to you? How do you do it when you're in a match situation? And then, it's always hard to replicate match match pressure in practice. So once you kind of feel good playing, doing that kind of stuff in practice matches, you got to translate it to actual matches. And sometimes you're going to take your bumps, but you got to believe that you're doing the right things and the work is going to pay off eventually.
Stevie, I'm back.
I'm back. Prakash is back.
You've been fired away at all these questions. I'm gonna jump in now. You've been unbelievable for this hour, and we've obviously seen what you brought to us these last 9 years, and even at USC and so forth. But can I just put you on the spot before we get out of here and ask you, what can we expect for the future from Stevie Johnson?
You know, for me, you know, I'm kind of using this time as a getaway from tennis in a little bit, in kind of in a weird way, just so you know, hopefully when hopefully we get back to tennis sooner rather than later, I'll be refreshed mentally and physically and ready to go. I feel like I still have a lot of good years left ahead of me. So for me, I'm kind of using this as you know, a mid-career hiatus, and looking at it like that to just kind of refresh and get everything back going, and hopefully I'll hit the ground running once we get back going.
Mid-career hiatus. I like to hear that. we're all pulling for you to play many more years. You've been unbelievable to watch, and you've been a fantastic friend at this end, and I think it's just been wonderful for all our viewers today. So Stevie, just really appreciate you taking the time today.
I can't thank you guys enough. You know, stay safe, and hopefully we'll get back to this sport that we love soon.
Absolutely. Stevie, thank you very much. Just a reminder out there for everybody that our All Access series will be coming up again this coming Thursday with Bethany Maddock. We'll have a lot more guests as well. Thursday, April 30th, we'll have IMG Academy's Jimmy Arias and Myanmar Kekmanovic, how to navigate this time of COVID-19 that we're going through. As I mentioned, Bethany Maddox-Sands, 9-time Grand Slam champion and Olympic gold medalist, will be coming on. She'll be sharing what we can learn about her journey. And a very interesting one on Friday, May 1st, coming up, Joey Johnson and Mikhail Torpegard, why mindset development is so critical. Once again, thank you very much for joining us. And don't forget, you can go to myutr.com to learn more about how we can bring free technology to your tennis world, your community, high school, club, and academy. We will see everybody next time. Thank you.